remember not to fill your spoon too full.
Yes, Mum. fella, come on.
Almost there.
Right. Yeah, I think they've been put too much in.
Alright, really. That's what we ate on the tackle. Oh, that's good. Just one.
Okay.
That's really tasty. What is it?
Can I have my dinner?
Sorry.
Are you sorry?
Oh, well done.
Done reading?
Yeah. Where's my bookmark?
If you just remember the page, you wouldn't need a bookmark.
It's not even a bookmark, it's the top of a dates packet.
Classy. Right. You done? Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed walking along the Moray Coast Trail with us there. We are Kim and Del Hogg. We make films about our travels to share with you here on YouTube, and we write accompanying guides over on our website goingthewholehog.com to help you get out there and explore these exact same places yourself.
In recent years, we've lived and travelled in various countries around the world, places including Korea, Central Asia, Nepal, Georgia, Armenia, Oman, and our home country of Scotland. We've produced a whole bunch of videos and written guides about amazing hikes, road trips, outdoor adventures, and generally beautiful places in each of these countries, which you can find here on our channel or over on our website.
And if you enjoy what we do and you want to help us to keep doing what we're doing, the easiest way is to hit the like button on this film, drop us a comment down below and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us to reach a wider audience, more people that are interested in the same kind of things, and to grow this little YouTube community of ours.
This video is obviously about the Moray Coast Trail, and we're going to tell you lots more about it just now. But if you are thinking about hiking it yourself, do head over to the website and check out our written guide, which tells you absolutely everything you need to know before you start.
So the Moray Coast Trail is exactly that. It is a trail that goes along the entire coastline of the Moray region in the northeast of Scotland. It officially starts in Forres and ends in Cullen. It's about 46 miles, which is about 75 kilometres if you work in kilometres like I do. And it takes most people around about 4 days to walk the route. You could walk it year round. It's low level, so you don't really have issues with snow or anything like that. But some facilities are closed during the kind of off season between, say, the end of October and the end of March. But yeah, you could walk it at any time of year. And even in summer, you don't really get midges on the east coast of Scotland, so you don't need to worry about those little biting beasties.
Bonus. There's public transport at both the start and the end points and throughout actually, so you can get the train or the bus to your start and end points. As you've seen from the film, there are lots of highlights along the Moray Coast Trail, everything from sandy beaches and dunes to interesting rock formations, historic fishing villages, beautiful coastal scenery, and the chance to spot wildlife such as seals or dolphins.
A couple of alterations to the official route that we would recommend is skipping the first section between Forres and Findhorn and just starting your journey in Findhorn instead, and also continuing on for a few kilometres at the end from Cullen to Sandend. That section was really cool as well, and we would definitely recommend it. I think it's just not included in the official Moray Coast Trail because it's no longer in Moray. Moray officially ends at Cullen. So that's probably why it's not there.
What is it then?
It's worth doing.
Aberdeenshire? Banffshire?
Banffshire doesn't exist anymore, I don't think so.
Aberdeenshire. We wild camped every night, but there are plenty of accommodation options along the route, including B&Bs and hotels, and there are also a few campsites that accept tents. In terms of food, there are a lot of restaurants, cafes and shops along the way, so it's easy to pick up supplies or eat out, whichever you prefer.
You can find a detailed list of all the accommodation and food options that are available along each section of the Moray Coast Trail in the guide over on our website. And we've also put together a very handy e-map which has the entire Moray Coast Trail route marked. It's also got key sites along the way marked on it and facilities like toilets and shops for each section. So it's really easy for you to just pinpoint exactly what is available each day and what there is to see and do. We've also marked suggested wild camp spots on the e-map. So these are places that we either stayed ourselves, that you saw in the film. Most of them are actually places that we just spied as we were walking and went, oh, wish we'd stayed there.
Yeah.
That's a perfect wild camp spot. So we've marked these on the e-map for you so that you can use it when you're planning your trip. And also you can use the map while you're walking. You can download it for offline use to some mapping apps, or you can just use it online as well. So you can access that map via the link in our guide, which in turn you can access via the link up here, or it's in the description down below as well. We definitely feel like Moray is a bit of an underrated region in Scotland. It has such an amazing coastline, not to mention like Speyside whisky country, which we're not going to get into in this because that's a whole other thing. But yeah, amazing beaches, beautiful coastline. You've got this huge dolphin population. I think there's about 200 dolphins that reside in the Moray Firth, which is the body of water that's all along the Moray coast. And yeah, there's loads to see and do here, and yet it's not all that popular tourist destination, so it tends to be pretty quiet. There's also very good weather. It's known for its sort of own little microclimate, and it tends to be always sunny in Moray. That's what they say anyway. I mean, no guarantees that you're not going to get rain or whatever, but generally it's very nice weather here. And we would highly recommend this walk basically for just about anyone. It's not overly challenging, although, 75 kilometres is not to be sniffed at. It's all low-lying, and the fact that you can stay in accommodation every night and eat out or buy supplies along the way means you don't need to carry a huge amount of weight. And yeah, it's a really great walk, and we would definitely recommend it for just about anyone who fancies doing a long distance walk in Scotland.
We would definitely recommend it. There's a huge variety of beautiful coastline, and I'm actually from Moray as well. I grew up in Elgin. My dad and my sister still live in the area, and I spent a lot of time as a kid on many of these beaches, in the forests and around the area in general, and so I was quite excited just to walk the trail and gain that different perspective, because as you go day by day you see things that you've never seen before, you get to see things at a slower pace with a different set of eyes, and that's how it was on this trail. It was really, really beautiful, really enjoyed it. I would say it's one of the favourite walks I've done in Scotland. I don't know if you'd agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely different scenery to like the West Coast or something like that. Yeah. Although actually some of the beaches did really remind us of beaches up on the North Coast. But yeah, for sort of a different side of Scotland to the classic, Glencoe or the Isle of Skye or something like that. It's very different scenery, but it's also really, really beautiful and has a lot of interesting history to it as well.
Yeah, equally enjoyable, I would say.
So let's get into the day-to-day of the Moray Coast Trail, tell you a little bit more about our own experience on each section, and a little bit more about what you saw in the film. So day one was from Forest to a camp spot in Roseisle Forest, which was about 20 kilometres for us. If you were planning on staying in accommodation, we'd recommend you carrying on a little bit further to either Burghead or Hopeman and spending the night there.
Yeah, as mentioned before, we recommend starting the Moray Coast Trail in Findhorn if you can, rather than Forest. The section between Forest and Findhorn is just walking on minor roads or pavement, and it's not that interesting.
Yeah, it's about 10 kilometres, that section. We did film a few clips from there. You go past like Ben Romach, is it Ben Romach Distillery?
I can't remember the name of it.
And some fields and stuff like that. But yeah, it's not that interesting, and we didn't ever end up putting it in the film even. We just cut straight to the good stuff at Findhorn. So we were lucky enough to get a lift from Delstad to the starting point, and you can take the train to Forest as well. But if you want to start at Findhorn, you can jump on a bus and get to the start point there. So Findhorn itself, we go there loads walking, is Dad's dog, and it's just a really, really nice place. It has a beautiful beach. It's got colourful beach huts there. The community there, there's like nice little cafes and a couple of pubs. There is a long established eco community that lives there, and
the Findhorn Foundation.
Yeah, it's just generally a really cool place. So it's worth spending even a night or two there before you start your walk if you just want to soak up to nice sort of coastal vibes. And yeah, it's a good place to start. So we got a wee ice cream to give us a little boost after 10 kilometres of trudging along the pavement and back roads. And then the route just follows the coast basically. You have a little bit inland through the hinterland area, but mostly you're just walking along the coast.
Findhorn Beach eventually just turns into Roseisle Beach. Essentially it's one long beach that goes all the way to Burghead.
Yeah, there's a few sections like that on the coast actually. So yeah, one long beach. You start to see pillboxes and like anti-tank defences at this section, so they are kind of like buried in the sand around Roseisle. These pillboxes and so on, they date back to World War II era, when a whole load of them were installed all along the Moray coast in order to prevent a potential invasion. And it's like a really interesting part of the history around there. The forest itself, the Roseisle Forest, was planted in the 1930s to try and stabilise a whole area of shifting dunes, and it's such a cool section of the walk. You've just got these massive pine trees that go right up to the beach with all these dunes and stuff like that. So it's a really cool area, and it's the only section that you'll go through like that on the trail, so enjoy it while you're there.
So after walking through the forest and the main kind of car park area behind the beach, we found that little spot for setting up for the night, which was kind of ideal.
Yeah, just next to a wee barn, and there were a few dog walkers around. Some of the dogs like to come over and say hi, trampled all over our stuff. Del wasn't too pleased about that. But yeah.
There was muddy dog prints all over the clothes and the mat. Of course I wasn't happy about it. On day 2 we went from Roseisle Forest to Lossiemouth East Beach. It was about 21 kilometres. We camped on the beach itself, but if you're staying in accommodation, then we recommend staying in Lossiemouth. There are plenty of options. It's one of the bigger towns along the route.
So overall, I would say this is one of the highlights of the Moray Coast Trail, this section. Just pretty much standout scenery from start to finish. We woke up in the forest, had a little walk down to the beach, which was just next to us. Del flew the drone, got lots of nice shots there. And then we packed up and headed into Burghead itself, which is quite a historic old town. It has it's the site of an old Pictish fort, and you can go and sort of check out all that stuff if you want. We just headed straight for the coast and worked our way along the lovely little coastal section between Burghead and Hopeman, which has lots of nice sort of rock formations and a few nice beaches and whatnot. Hopeman itself is one of my favourite villages along the trail. We actually spend a lot of time there, seeing as Del's sister still lives there. And we had a little break for some coffee and some lunch, nipped up to see her, before resuming our walk, which kind of made us quite late that day, but never mind, it was worth it. So yeah, Hopeman itself is really nice. It's got West Beach, it's got East Beach, it's got a whole row of really colourful, characterful beach huts, which I've sort of been there for decades and handed down sort of through families, local families. Really lovely spot. And beyond there is one of my favourite sections. It's an area called, well, locally it's just called Cove Bay. I think officially it's
Cove.
Or the Coves. But yeah, officially I think it's Clashach Cove. But yeah, we just call it the Coves. And it's this amazing section of beach, sort of snuggled in between rocks, and we'd only ever...
Snuggled, that's not a word I would use.
Well, it is.
I mean, it's quite a large section of beach in this wide cove bay. Snuggled.
It's a cosy little bay, and we had only ever been there at high tide before, or at least we'd never been there at low tide, and I couldn't believe it when we came around the corner and looked over it, how much sand was exposed, how beautiful it was. It helped that it was a super sunny day. It was 17 degrees that day or something. We were walking at the end of August, by the way, just in case you were wondering. And yeah, the cove is absolutely amazing. There's a cave, there is a natural sea, I want to say arch. It's also a tunnel that you can go through, and on the left hand side of the beach, which I'd never seen before, there is another rock arch, and it's just incredible. You need to walk down to the beach, the actual trail goes above it, but make sure you go down there, and we definitely recommend trying to time your walk with low tide at the coves, because it's just spectacular. You could easily spend an hour or more down there getting for a wee swim if it's a nice day. It would also be a really good place to camp, and we did consider it, but
it was too early in the day to stop. We hadn't done enough distance, and it would have basically added on an extra day to the whole trip, I think, so we didn't do that.
But that's a really beautiful spot, and definitely make time in your day to spend some time there. So leaving there, we climbed back up to the cliffs, and there aren't really any more settlements along the trail until you get to Lossiemouth. So it's really nice. You're just walking past good rock formations, lots of bird life. You go past a really cool Stevenson lighthouse, a big white and yellow number at Cove Sea, and the beach there is really nice. Cove Sea, Cowsea. We've heard, maybe that's just locally pronounced Cowsea.
Just Cove Sea is fine.
I don't know, yeah, we've heard that pronounced in different ways. But yeah, the beach there is really, really cool. The lighthouse is really nice. When you turn that corner for the last sort of few kilometres into Lossiemouth, the Lossiemouth West Beach is not quite as nice. It was a bit stinky of seaweed, or maybe it was just that I was pretty tired by that point and wasn't enjoying it quite so much.
Smelled like low tide, as Cam would say.
Did smell like low tide. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of a slog, that very last section. But yeah, made it into Lossiemouth, which has a really nice harbour, and you could get a nice ice cream at Mealy's or go out for your tea. We just ended up getting a chippy. I was dying on my feet by that point. I just sat down on the bench, and you very kindly went up and got us a chippy. And
I ran along to the chippy and jogged back with it,
Yeah, and was revived by the fish and chips. Over the brand new bridge that has been built over the River Lossie to Lossie East Beach, which is absolutely spectacular and one of the nicest beaches on the route. Lots of dunes along the back, and just this pristine beach that goes on for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah, unfortunately I wasn't able to get any drone footage around the beach because it's close to RAF Lossiemouth, so there's a flight restriction in the area and you're just not able to take off. So
Yeah. Nice
got some-
footage
got some
anyway.
nice
I
stuff
hope you enjoyed
nonetheless,
that,
yeah.
and we certainly enjoyed our little camp there. We were, like I said, hiking at the end of August, and I think it was getting dark around 9 p.m. at that time. So yeah, it's pretty good hiking in the summer because you've just got such long daylight hours, especially when you're kind of this far north in Scotland. You know, height of summer, you're getting something like 18 hours a day of daylight, which is really quite nice. So yeah, we had just crashed out on the beach that night and slept very well to the sound of the waves crashing in the beach. It's lovely.
on day 3 we went from Lossiemouth East Beach to a camp spot between Spavey and Portgordon. It was about 18 kilometres. If you are staying in accommodation, we recommend continuing to Buckie where there are a few options.
So overall, I would say this was my least favourite day on the trail. It started off well, and I just was not feeling it by the end of the day, and it was definitely my least favourite.
I'm not sure if I would necessarily agree, but I don't think I have a least favourite or a favourite necessarily. So
Your emotions are not as strong as mine.
no, because I think you were suffering a bit with like walking along flat stretch in heat and not much wind, so that's part of your memory.
Maybe, yes. But generally speaking, I would say it's not the standout part of the trail. So if you were going to skip part of the Moray Coast Trail, this would be it as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so day started off well. You wake up on the beach, it's beautiful. You've got the sound of the ocean, you've got a few dog walkers going by in that. And I mean, yeah, Lossiemouth East Beach is absolutely gorgeous. You're always banging on about that's where you played as a kid and how great the dunes were in that. And yeah, I'd never really been there until recently, and I was like, this is amazing, absolutely beautiful. So it is an 11-kilometre stretch of beach and coastline between Lossie and the next part, which is at Spey Bay, which I think is the longest stretch of coast, like continuous coastline that you walk on the Moray Coast Trail. And yeah, it started off really, really beautiful. You've got that gorgeous golden sand. It was just like a really beautiful morning. The sand gradually sort of disappears and changes into really big pebbles and rocks. And that's also really interesting scenery around there. The forest starts on the right hand side, and it was very, very nice. You also come across a lot of really intact pillboxes and anti-tank traps from like World War II era, which is really interesting. And we'd actually been there not long before on a dog walk with your dad and his dog. And I was like, this is well cool.
We'd walked through the forest to get to the coast.
Yeah.
So sort of perpendicular to the coast. And actually when you go into the forest itself, you see a lot more of these pillboxes and other structures inside the forest, which you can kind of see a little bit from the drone footage too.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting part of the walk and the most intact sort of stretch of all these anti-tank traps. These chairs are knocking and it sounds like we're trumping. We're not trumping, that's your chairs, that's the leather. So yeah, very interesting, but for me it was only interesting for so long because there was 8 kilometres of that. I think you can tell from the drone footage that it's just like a really long stretch. And actually when you're walking on the ground, like the stones are quite awkward to walk on, so you're better to walk on the little path that runs along by the forest. And the way that the stones are all kind of, it's like an embankment of stones, so when you're walking along the path you can't actually see the ocean, and so there wasn't any breeze coming over and I didn't have the sea to look at, so for me I got a little bit hot and tired and sore feet, you know, walking along that bit, sore feet that means. It was definitely a bit of a slog for me by the time we got to Spey Bay. And then at that point, you're like looking across the mouth of the River Spey to where the trail continues, but because you've got this body of water in front of you, you need to kind of go inland quite a bit and come all the way around. So that as well, I was like, ugh, what a slog. But yeah, maybe I was just in a mood.
I mean, it's not that far inland that you have to go, to be honest. And it's actually quite nice and green, and there's, like, the fields were looking nice. And then, you know, Garmouth was nice where we went to the little cafe. So.
Oh yeah, so definitely stop in at the Speyside Roasting Co. coffee shop. Forgotten exactly what it's called.
Speyside Coffee Roasting.
That's
Company.
yeah. Anyway, they are roasting their own coffee. It's absolutely delicious, and it's a lovely wee place. We stopped in for some paninis, some cake, all sorts. It was absolutely rammed because we happened to be there on the same day as there was like a huge cycling event.
Ride the North.
Yeah, so it's like this. It's like 2 different cycling events. I think it's like one's 50 mile and one's 100 miles or something. But anyway, ton of cyclists in there. But we managed to get a wee table, charge up some drone batteries because that's always a consideration, sort of keeping everything charged when we're doing this kind of thing, and fueled up with coffee and sugar. So that made my day. And then after that we headed off over the Spey viaduct, which is really quite cool. It's this viaduct that was built as part of the Moray Coast, not the Moray Coast, the Moray Railway back in like the 1880s. That railway line doesn't exist anymore, but quite a few sections of this walk, including parts between Burghead and Hopeman and this part, are actually you're walking on former railway lines, which is kind of cool. So the viaduct was very nice, but then after that it was what I would consider to be a little bit of a filler section, just walking through some woods and
to be honest, that was kind of taken up with us looking for camp spots because we were wondering where we're going to stay. But there was a lot of destruction actually. A lot of the trees had come down, I think, in a bad storm in recent times, and so there was like no free areas for really putting your tent or anything like that.
I'd basically scouted out in advance of our walk on like satellite view and like Gaia GPS maps and stuff, places where I thought there was potential for us to camp, so I had some ideas. But this section was probably the trickiest to find a good spot, and yeah, all of these woods where I thought, oh, maybe we find something in there, because of the tree destruction was not an option. So in the end,
just beyond the woods, we found a little spot next to a farmer's field, which was kind of perfect. It wasn't that scenic, but it was ideal.
Yeah, it served a purpose, and we were out of view of anyone, so we weren't causing any problems or anything like that. So yeah, it was literally a patch of grass next to a track by a farmer's field, and it did the job, but it wasn't the most spectacular of camp spots.
On day 4 we went from our campsite before Portgordon to another camp spot just before Cullen. It was around 17 kilometres. If you're staying in accommodation, you would go all the way to Cullen, which is not much further, and there are a good few options there.
So this for me was another one of the standout days on the Moray Coast Trail. Definitely a highlight almost from start to finish. And yeah, a lot of great scenery along the way and some really nice spots to visit. So we packed up from our random little spot next to the farmer's field, carried on through some fields and into Portgordon, where we saw some seals. They were having a bit of a barmy on the rocks there. So we just sort of stayed and watched them for a bit. The next section, sort of until we made it to the other side of Buckie, was kind of mostly just walking through like all the kind of little villages that make up the greater Buckie area, like Buckpool and all of this. So we were mostly walking past people's houses, some of them which were kind of old traditional cottages, washing lines, which I always love. But yeah, it was a bit of a just, get through the housing bits until we got back to some really nice coastline which started around Portgordon on the far eastern side of Buckie.
Yeah, you also have to walk through the kind of main industrial part of Buckie, a lot of the warehouses and the harbour area.
Yeah, lots of trawlers.
Not very inspiring, but you just get through it.
Yeah, not a highlight in itself, but get to the other side and then the good stuff starts. So leaving Portgordon, we went around the corner, really nice bay, up and sort of down along a kind of coastal section, and then you get a view looking to Fenechty, which is this beautiful wee sort of former fishing town. It's spelt Findocty, but it is pronounced Fenechty, just so you know. And
very confusing.
It is very confusing, and actually we didn't know that. It was his sister that told us that when I was talking about the places we were going along the route. She's like, "Oh, you mean Fenechty?" I was like, "Oh, do I? Okay, yeah, yeah, I guess I do." So cheers, Heather, for that. And yeah, so Fenechty is really nice, lovely little harbour. So you walk all the way around the harbour, sort of past some really nice old cottages and so on, to a beach on the other side, and then you climb up to the cliffs, and there's a nice little sort of cliff top section between Fenechty and Portgordon. So
Portgordon.
Portnocky.
Portnocky.
So Portnocky is home to one of the coolest rock formations on the Moray Coast Trail, called Bowfiddle Rock. And it's really, really impressive, the coast around there. The village is just sort of up on top, and I think you can kind of get a good impression from the drone footage actually of, you know, the houses coming down on like this kind of flat, and then the cliffs just drop down, and you've got all these really weird rock formations. There's like a harbour and an outdoor swimming pool there on one side, and then like Bowfiddle Rock is just really close to the town, and yeah, it's like this big sea arch which is said to look like the top of a bow for a fiddle, a violin. Personally, I think it looks more like a whale's tail, but
from certain angles. I mean, it looks different from every different angle. Yeah. But it's a good thing about it. If you go down to the shore, you know, it looks really interesting. If you go up on the cliffs, you get a different viewpoint. If you're lucky enough to have a drone and you get up in the air, it also looks completely different and also spectacular. So
definitely take the time to go off the trail, go down to the bay. There's a really cool cave on the left that you can walk through and get sort of a view through there. So yeah, it's a really spectacular spot. A lot of bird life around there as well. And yeah, we'd been there a couple of times before, and actually we have a print of Bowfiddle Rock in our Scotland print collection over on the website, which you can check out via the link up here if you fancy hanging a little bit of Scotland on your wall. So anyway, just a little interlude, advertising interlude there for our own self-promotion.
Another thing that's good about Portgordon is the fish and chips.
Oh yeah, best chippy on the Moray Coast, I would say. Not that I've had them all, but it certainly blew the socks off the one I ate in Lossiemouth. It is only open, I think, was it Thursday to Sunday? Only open a few days a week anyway.
4 days a week.
And we did have to hang around for, I think it was nearly an hour waiting for the chippy. So definitely phone ahead, that is what they advise, because it's very popular, very delicious fish and chips. And yeah, so we basically spent ages in Portgordon in the end, just waiting for the chippy to open at like 4:30. And spending ages around the rocks and things like that, but the chippy was worth it. So the section from Portgordon to Cullen is actually quite short, but I feel like there's a lot to see along there, so it always seems to take us forever to cover that section. And you go down some like rocky steps. There's another cool rock formation on the left called, I think it's called the Whale's Mouth, which is where we saw that murmuration, which was super cool. I always love seeing that. It's just amazing to see. And there was like some ferns, and there was a well, there's some caves around there, and it's like popular for bouldering.
Jenny's Well, is that what it's called? Jenny's Well?
Jenny's Well, yeah. So there's like a fresh water supply, and yeah, it's like a popular little spot for bouldering. Both times that we've been there's been people with like their big
crash mats.
Yeah, crash mats doing some bouldering there. So we just pitched up a tent there for the night. A lovely little spot, and you could sort of see Cullen, the likes of Cullen over the other side of the beach, and a lot of bird life and stuff. And yeah, one of our favourite camp spots on the trip. It's really lovely.
On day 5, we continued on to Cullen, and that is the official endpoint of the Moray Coast Trail, but we decided we wanted to go a bit further, so we continued on to Sandend. We were thinking about maybe Portgordon, but we had a lot of interesting and cool things to see that day, and so we never made it that far. We finished in Sandend.
Yeah, so it was about 9 kilometres that day. And yeah, it was another highlight of the trail. Even though it's not officially the Moray Coast Trail, we would definitely recommend continuing on to Sandend or onto Portgordon if you fancied it. It's not part of the trail because, like we mentioned before, Moray technically ends at Cullen, so it's not included because you're technically walking into Aberdeenshire, but you know, it's all part of the same coastline, and it's definitely worth continuing on there. So we packed up and headed along to Cullen Beach, which is another one of the best beaches on the Moray Coast. Really, really beautiful. I think the tide must have been going out as well because there was a lot of sand exposed.
Low,
yeah, really, really nice. Across the beach to the other side where there's these kind of cool stacks, which are known as the Three Kings, and you also have these 2 massive viaducts, which are also part of that former Moray Railway, which used to run, 100 years ago or whatever. And so
now you can just cycle or walk over it.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting feature of Cullen, which in itself is a really interesting little village. Town, yeah. And it would make a good end spot for the Moray Coast Trail, but like we said, the trail after that is well worth seeing for yourself. So we just carried on past the harbour, around the coast, and past the pet cemetery, which is a bit of a random thing. I've never seen that anywhere else. So you come across a variety of little bays and coves, interesting rocks and whatnot. There was a section where it was all like overgrown with bracken, which was really cool, and then we turned the corner and were faced with Sunnyside Beach, which I had never even heard of. You'd never been there, had you?
No.
No. It was amazing. So it's just this long curve of beautiful sand backed by like marram grass and then big tall cliffs at the back of it. And it's just like farmers' fields up the top, like running right to where the cliffs start, and then it just drops down. It was so cool. I absolutely loved it there. And yeah, we just stopped there and had a nice little oatcakes and cheese lunch before climbing up to the top of the cliffs on a track. And then shortly after that, you get a viewpoint over Findlater Castle, I'm not quite sure how you say that, which is this really cool old ruined castle that's on like a promontory coming out of the rocks with like a big sort of 50-foot drop down to the crashing rocks and waves and stuff below. Really cool. So you can kind of, it's quite steep, but you can go down to the castle itself. Or you get a really nice view from the top. So that was very impressive, and that alone makes it worth, like that and Sunnyside Beach make it worth continuing on from Cullen, just so you can see those. So from there we had just a short distance left to get to Sandend, so we continued along the coast, and it was definitely a lot more kind of overgrown on this section. You could see that there were old trail signs, but like there was gorse bushes and things that were kind of growing over the trail, and at one point we did have to just walk at the very edge of a farmer's field for a stretch of it. More dramatic kind of rock formations, and then you get to the corner and start looking more inland, and you see the lovely little village of Sandend. It's like all these old fishing cottages that are all like tucked into the cliff, and then you've got this lovely stretch of sand at the beach there. So it was the perfect place to end our trip. We had, as you said, thought about carrying on to Portgordon, but it was getting late in the day. We were getting picked up by his dad, and we didn't quite have time to finish it. So we were quite happy just to end at the harbour down in Sandend. And we got a lift back to Elgin with his dad, but there is a bus service that you can take from there as well if you were finishing your walk there. And the bus can take you to Aberdeen or to Elgin and Inverness and so on. So yeah, it's a good place to end your walk.
If you're interested in the filming process and how we make these videos, we shoot everything on the Sony a7 III with the 24 to 70mm lens. We have a Rode Video Mic Pro to capture all the sound, and we set everything up on our Peak Design travel tripod. So that's how we get the majority of our shots. We set them up at different angles, we walk to the camera, and then I usually have to run back, pick it up, or run forward, pick it up, whatever. Of course we also have the drone to capture things from the air.
So he does quite a lot of extra distance on these hikes compared to me, and it takes us a lot longer to complete these walks than it would obviously if you weren't filming all along the way. But yeah, we hope that it's worth it and you enjoy the films in the end. If you're interested in anything else like the gear that we're using, like our hiking clothes or camping gear or cookware or whatever, we actually have a couple of guides over on the blog just outlining like all the stuff that we use and why and what we think about it over the years of using that gear. So you can check those out. I'll put a link to them down in the description. I think they're linked up here as well if you're just curious to know what it is that we've been using.
So that's it for our Moray Coast Trail video. I hope you enjoyed it, found it useful, helpful, interesting, entertaining.
Any or all of the above?
Yeah.
Maybe none of them.
Please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already.
Yeah, those are all great ways to support us and to help us reach a wider audience and to keep doing what we're doing. Other great ways are to head over to our website, goingthewholehog.com, have a little read of some of our guides, have a little click around on there, that's always good. And if you're booking any accommodation, if you're booking flights, buying things on Amazon, you can also use our affiliate links when you're clicking through to these sites and it doesn't cost you any extra, but it does usually bring us a small commission, and all of that helps us to keep doing what we're doing. And if you really love what we do, it would be great if you could go and check out our Patreon page and consider becoming one of our patrons. So we do offer exclusive perks in exchange for monthly pledges to support our continued video making and guide writing on the website. And we already have a few patrons out there. Thank you very much. You know who you are. You are really helping us and supporting us to keep doing what we're doing, so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll see you next time, where I think we will be going back in time a little to our trip to Oman earlier this year. I think that's going to be the
Looking forward
next
to that.
big project that we're going to get stuck into. So watch the space. Subscribing does mean, and hitting that notification bell does mean that you'll get notified whenever these videos will come out, because we don't have a regular upload schedule. So yeah, hit the little bell and then you'll get a wee notification. Anyway, as usual, I'm rambling on, so we'll just call it quits there.
Yeah.
Cheerio!
See ya. Bye.